Theme 9 Kings and Chronicles Mughal Courts 16th and 17th century AD. Next, the next first arrow image the mausoleum of Timur at Samarkand in Uzbekistan 1404. Next arrow Mughal kings commissioned court historians to write accounts. Modern historians writing in English have termed this genre of text chronicles as they present a continuous chronological records of events. First, the Mughals and the empire and their empire. They refer to themselves as Timurids, as descendants of the Turkish ruler Timur on paternal side. Babur, related to Genghis Khan from mother side, he spoke Turkish and referred to Mongols as barbaric hordes. Name Mowgli of the Rudyard Kipling's Jungle Book is derived from it. Zahiruddin Babur was driven from his Central Asian homeland, Fergana, that is in Uzbekistan, by the warring Uzbeks. Babur first established himself at Kabul and then in 1526 pushed further into the Indian subcontinent. Next arrow image Humayun's wife Nadira crossing the desert of Rajasthan. Humayun's wife Nadira crossing the desert of Rajasthan. Next point Akbar succeeded in extending the frontiers of the empire to the Hindu Kush mountains and checked the expansionist designs of the Uzbeks of the Turan, that is Central Asia, and the Safavids of Iran. Under his successors, the territorial expansion continued, though at a much reduced pace. Next point the visible center of Mughal power was the court. Here, political alliances and relationships were forged, status and hierarchies defined. Next point the political system devised by the Mughals was based on a combination of military power and conscious policies to accommodate the different traditions that encountered in the subcontinent. After Tarasu's death of Aurangzeb, the power of the dynasty diminished. In place of empire, in place of empire closed from the Delhi, Agra, or Lahore, the different capital cities, regional powers acquired greater autonomy. Yet, symbolically, the prestige of the Mughal ruler did not lose its aura. Second point, the production of chronicles. Authors were invariably courtiers. Next point, titles like Akbarnama, Shahjahanama, and Alamgirnama of the Aurangzeb suggest that in the eyes of their authors, the history of the empire and the court was synonymous with that of the emperor. Next arrow, Chagatai Turks traced descent from the eldest son of the Genghis Khan to a from Turkish to Persian. Mughal court chronicles were written in Persian. Under Delhi Sultans, Persian flourished as a language of the court and of literary writings, alongside northern Indian languages, especially Hindavi and its regional variants. As Mughals were Chagatai Turks by origin, Turkish was their mother tongue. Babur wrote poetry and his memoirs in Turkish. It was Akbar who made Persian the leading language of the Mughal court. Persian was elevated to the language of the empire. Even when the Persian was not directly used, its vocabulary and idiom heavily influenced the language of the official records of the Rajasthani and Marathi and even the Tamil. Next part. Persian too became Indianized by absorbing local idioms. A new language, Urdu, sprang from the interaction of the Persian and the Hindavi. Akbarnama was written in Persian, Baburnama translated to Persian from Turkish. Translation of Sanskrit texts like Ramayana and Mahabharata into Persian. Mahabharata is translated to Rajmanama, Book of Wars. Next arrow. Abdul Abul Fazl. Superficial observers see in the letter a dark figure, but the deep-sighted see in it a lamp of wisdom. Chirage Shinasai. 1 and 2b. 2b. The making of the manuscripts. All books in the Mughal India were manuscripts. Center of manuscript production was the Imperial Kitab Khana. It was a scriptorium, that is a place where the emperor's collection of the manuscripts were kept and new manuscripts were produced. The finished manuscript was seen as a precious object, a work of intellectual wealth and beauty. Calligraphers and painters held a high social standing while others, such as the paper makers and bookbinders, have remained anonymous artisans. Akbar's favorite calligraphy was Nastaliq, a fluid style with long horizontal strokes. Next arrow image a folio in Nastaliq, work of the Muhammad Hussain of Kashmir, calligrapher at Akbar's court, honored with the title Zarin Kalam, that is golden pen. Zarin Kalam, that is golden pen. Muhammad Hussain of Kashmir in Nastaliq. Third point, the painted image. Scribe left blank spaces on nearby pages for the painters to make images according to the words. These paintings were miniatures and could therefore be passed around the viewing and mounting on the pages of manuscripts. Abul Fazl described painting as a magical art. In his view, it had the power to make inanimate objects look as if they possessed life. The production of the paintings portraying the emperor, his court, and the people who were part of it was a source of constant tension between the rulers and the Muslim orthodoxy, the ulema. Ulema did not fail to invoke the Islamic prohibition of the portrayal of the humans enshrined in the Quran as well as Hadith, which described an incident from the life of the Prophet Muhammad. Here, the prophet is cited as having forbidden the depiction of the living beings in a naturalistic manner, as it would suggest that the artist was seeking to appropriate the power of creation. This was a function that was believed to belong exclusively to God. Next arrow, Abul Fazl. Drawing the likeness of anything is called tasvir. His Majesty from his earlier youth has shown a great predilection for this art and gives it very encouragement as he looks upon it as a means both of study and amusement. Safavid king of Iran, for example, patronized the finest artists who were trained in the workshop set up at the court. The names of the painters like the Behzad contributed to spreading the cultural fame of the Safavid court far and wide. Artists from Iran like the Mir Sayyid Ali and Abdus Samad, who were made to accompany Emperor Humayun to Delhi. Others migrated in search of opportunities. Mir Sayyid Ali and Abdus Samad accompanied the Emperor Humayun. Fourth point, the Akbarnama and the Bashanama. Bashanama, the chronicle of a king. Both contain 150 full or double page paintings of the battles, sieges, hunts, building construction, court scenes, etc. Abul Fazl grew in Agra, that is the then capital. Abul Fazl was well read in Arabic, Persian, Greek philosophy, and Sufism. Consistently opposed the views of the conservative ulama. Beginning 1589, Abul Fazl worked on Akbarnama for 13 years, repeatedly revising it based on sources like including actual records of events, that is Waqi, official documents, and oral testimonies of the knowledgeable persons. Akbarnama, 3 books. First two are Chronicles and third, the Ain Bakwari. First volume, the history of the mankind from Adam to one celestial cycle of the Akbar's life, that is 30 years. Second volume closes with the 46th regnal year of the Akbar, that is 1601. The very next year, Akbar Fazl fell victim to a conspiracy hatched by Prince Salim and was murdered by his accomplice Bir Singh Bundela. Murdered by his accomplice Bir Singh Bundela. Next point, Akbarnama. Diachronic sense of political significance across time. Synchronic pictures of all aspects of Akbar's empire, geographic, social, administrative, and cultural without reference to the chronology. In Ain Akbari, the Mughal Empire is presented as having a diverse population consisting of Hindus, Jains, Buddhists, and Muslims and a composite culture. Next arrow, diachronic account traces developments over time. Synchronic accounts depicts one or several situations at one particular moment or a point of time. A pupil of Abul Fazl, Abdul Hamid Lahori, is known as the author of the Basha Nama. Shah Jahan commissioned him to write it. Basha Nama, official history of in 3 volumes, that is Daftars of 10 lunar years each. Lahori wrote the first and the second Daftars between 1627 to 47. These were later revised by the Saadullah Khan, Shah Jahan's Wazir. Infirmities of old age prevented Lahori from proceeding with the third decade, which was then chronicled by the historian Waris. Next arrow. Nawab of Awadh gifted the illustrated Basha Nama to the King George III in 1799. Since then, it has been preserved in the English Royal Collections, now at the Windsor Castle. Next point, the Asiatic Society of Bengal, founded by Sir William Jones in 1784. He is the Justice of Supreme Court of Fort William, Calcutta, undertook the editing, printing, and translation of many Indian manuscripts. Edited versions of Akbarnama and Basha Nama were first published by the Asiatic Society in the 19th century AD. Akbarnama was translated into English by the Henry Berridge After years of hard labor, Henry Barrage या Banneridge देखना पड़ेगा. Only excerpts excerpts only excerpts of Bashanama have been translated into English to date. The text in its entirety still awaits translation. Fifth point, the ideal kingdom. 5a, a divine light. One legend of the Mongol queen Alan Kua. Mongol queen Alan Kua. Mongol queen Alan Kua. One legend of the Mongol queen Alan Kua, who was impregnated by a ray of sunshine while resting in her tent. The offspring she bore carried this divine light and passed it on from generation to generation. Next point, Abul Fazl placed Mughal kinship as the highest station in the hierarchy of objects receiving light emanating from God. Far-e-Izadi. Here he was inspired by the famous Iranian Sufi Sahihabuddin Surawardi, who first developed this idea. According to this idea, there was a hierarchy in which the divine light was transmitted to the king, who then became the source of spiritual guidance for his subjects. Next arrow. The origins of the Surawardi philosophy went back to the Plato's Republic, where God is represented by the symbol of the sun. Surawardi's writings were universally read in the Islamic world. They were studied by the Sheikh Mubarak, who transmitted their ideas to his sons Faizi and Abul Fazl. Next point, Mughal artists from the 7th century AD onward began to portray emperors wearing the halo, which they saw an European painting of the Christ and the Virgin Mary to symbolize the light of the God. Next image. Painting by Abul Hasan shows Jahangir dressed in resplendent clothes and jewels, holding up a portrait of his father. Akbar is dressed in white, associated in Sufi traditions with the enlightened soul. He professes globe, symbolic of the dynastic authorities. Abul Hasan, painter. Fifth B, a unifying force. Abul Hasan describes the ideal of Sulh-e-Kul, that is absolute peace, as the cornerstone of enlightened rule. In Sulh-e-Kul, all religions and schools of thought had freedom of expression, but on condition that they did not undermine the authority of the state or fight amongst themselves. The ideal of Sulh-e-Kul was implemented through states' policies. The nobility under the Mughal was a composite one, comprising Iranis, Turanis, Afghans, Rajputs, Deccanis, all of whom were given positions and awards purely on the basis of their service and loyalty to the king. Akbar abolished tax on the pilgrimage in 1563. Akbar abolished jizya in 1564, as two were based on the religious discrimination. Instructions to officers of the empire to follow the precept of the Sulh-e-Kul in administration. All Mughal emperors gave grant to subject. All Mughal emperors gave grant to support the buildings and maintenance of the places of worship. Even when temples were destroyed during wars, grants were later issued for their repair, as in the reigns of Shah Jahan and Aurangzeb. Aurangzeb imposed jizya on non-Muslim subjects. Next arrow image. Jahangir presenting Prince Khurram with the turban jewel scene from the Basha Nama painted by the artist Payas in 1640. Artist Payas in 1640. 5c. Just sovereignty as social contract. Abul Fasl defined sovereignty as a social contract. The emperor protects the four essence of his subjects, namely life, that is Jan, property, that is Mal, honor, that is Namus, and faith, that is Deen, and in return demands obedience and a share of resources. Artists use the motif of the lion. Artists use the motive of the lion and the lamb or a goat to peacefully nestling next to each other. This meant to signify a realm where both the strong and the weak could exist in harmony. Quote scenes from the illustrated Nama place such motifs in a niche directly below the emperor's throne. Next arrow image. Jahangir shooting the figure of poverty, painting by the artist Abul Hasan. The artist has enveloped the target in a dark cloud to suggest that this is not a real person but a human form, used to symbolize an abstract quality. Such a mode of personification in art and literature is termed allegory. 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 The chain of justice is shown descending from the heaven. Point number 6. Capitals and courts. 6a. Capital cities. Babur took over the Lodi capital of Agra but was frequently on move. During 1560s, Akbar had the fort of Agra constructed with red sandstone quarried from the adjoining regions. In 1570s, Akbar decided to build a new capital, Fatehpur Sikri, as Sikri was located on the direct road to Ajmer, where the Dargah of the Sheikh Muinuddin Chishti had become an important pilgrimage center. Mughal emperor entered into a close relationship with Sufis of the Chishti silsilas. Akbar commissioned the construction of a white marble tomb for Sheikh Salim Chishti next to the Friday Mosque at Sikri. Arch Gateway, that is Buland Darwaza, was meant to remind visitors of the Mughal victory in Gujarat. In 1585, the capital was transferred to Lahore. 1585. Shah Jahan pursued sound fiscal policies and accumulated enough money to indulge his passion for building. Building activity in monarchical cultures was the most visible and tangible sign of dynastic power, wealth, and prestige. In case of Muslim rulers, it was also considered an act of piety, that is religious. In 1648, the court, army, and household moved from Agra to the newly completed imperial capital Shahjahanabad. It was a new addition to the old residential city of Delhi with the Red Fort and the Jama Masjid, a tree-lined esplanade with bazaars of like Chandni Chowk and spacious homes for the nobility. Shah Jahan's new city was appropriate to a more formal vision of a grand monarchy. 6b, the Mughal court. The centerpiece was throne, the takht, which gave physical form to the function of the sovereign as axis mundi. Axis mundi is a Latin phrase for a pillar or pole that is visualized as the support of the earth. The place accorded to the courtier, the place accorded to the courtier by the ruler was a sign of his importance in the eyes of the emperor. Once the emperor sat on the throne, no one was permitted to move from his position or to leave without permission. The slightest infringement of the etiquette was noticed and punished on the spot. Next arrow. Cornish to be performed before Emperor Akbar according to Abul. According to Abul. Cornish was a form of ceremonial salutation in which the courtier placed the palm of his right hand against his forehead and bent with head. It suggested that the subject placed his head, the seat of the senses and the mind, into the head of the humility, head into the hand of humility, presenting it to the royal family. Deeper prostration represented higher status. The highest form of submission was sajda, or complete prostration. Under Shah Jahan, these rituals were replaced with chahar taslim and zameen boz, kissing the ground. Chahar taslim under Shah Jahan. In Chahar taslim is a mode of salutation which begins with placing the back of the right hand on the ground and raising it gently till the person stands erect. When he puts the palm of his hand upon the crown of his head, it is done four, that is chahar times. Taslim literally means submission. An ambassador was expected to offer an acceptable form of greeting, either by bowing deeply or kissing the ground, or else to follow the Persian custom of clasping one's hand in front of the chest. Thomas Roe, the English envoy of the James I, simply bowed before Jahangir according to European custom and further shocked the court by demanding a chair. Thomas Roe, the English envoy of James I. Emperor, next point, Emperor, small balcony, the Jarokha facing the east. Jarokha facing the east. Jarokha Darshan was introduced by the Akbar with the objective of broadening the acceptance of the imperial authority as part of the popular faith. Next arrow. Shab-e-Barat. Shab-e-Barat is a full moon night on the 14th Shaban, the 8th month of the Hijri calendar, and is celebrated with the prayers and fireworks in the subcontinent. It is a night when the destinies of the Muslims for the coming year are said to be determined and sins forgiven. Next arrow. Shah Jahan's jeweled throne, Takht-e-Murassa, described in Basha Nama. Structure has a canopy supported by 12-sided pillars and measures 5 cubits in height from the flight of the steps to the overhanging dome. Next point. After Jharokha, the emperor walked to the public hall of audience, that is Diwan-e-Am, to conduct the primary business of his government. State officials presented reports and made requests. Later, the emperor was in the Diwan-e-Khas to hold private audiences and discuss confidential matters. Occasionally, the emperor viewed the works of the highly reputed artisans or building plans of architects. That architects meaning Mimar, Mimar meaning architect. On special occasions such as the anniversary of accession to the throne, Eid, Shab-e-Barat, and Holi, the court was full of life. Next arrow image, Shah Jahan honoring Prince Aurangzeb at Akbar before his wedding. Painting by Payag in the Bashanama, Payag, Payag. Next image is of the Prince Khurram being waked in precious metals in a ceremony called the Jashan-e-Wazn or Tuladan from Jahangir's memoirs. Next point, celebrated three major festivals in a year: the solar and lunar birthdays of the monarch and Nowruz, the Iranian New Year on the vernal equinox. On his birthdays, the monarch was waked against various communities which were then distributed in charity. Next arrow, Dara Sukho's wedding with Nadira, daughter of the Prince Pervez. The Hina Bandi, the application of the Hina dye ceremony was performed in the Diwan Khas. Betel leaf, that is pan, cardamom, and dry fruit were distributed among the attendants of the court. 7C, titles and gifts. Ushers, that is Nakib, Naqib. Ushers, Nakib. Usher, show or guide. Ushers, show or guide someone somewhere. Usher means show or guide someone somewhere. Mughal coins carried the full title of the reigning emperor with regal protocol. A man's ascent in the court hierarchy could be traced through the titles he held. The title Asaf Jahan, the title Asaf Khan, for one of the highest ministers originated with Asaf, the legendary minister of the Prophet King Suleiman Solomon. The title Mirza Raja was accorded by Aurangzeb to his two highest ranking of his nobles, Jai Singh and Jaswant Singh. Mirza Raja to the Jai Singh and Jaswant Singh by Aurangzeb, his two highest ranking nobles. Titles could be earned or paid for. Mir Khan offered rupees 1 lakh to Aurangzeb for the letter Alif, that is A, to be added to his name to make his name Amir Khan from Mir Khan. Awards like Robe of Honor, that is Khilat, KHILAT is a robe of honor. Awards like Robe of Honor, that is Khilat, a garment once worn by the emperor and imbued with his benediction. Uh, one gift, the sarapa, that is head to foot, consisted of a tunic, a turban, and a shash patka. The lotus blossom set with jewels, Padma Murasa, was given only in exceptional circumstances. A courtier never approached the emperor empty-handed. He he offered either a small sum of money, nazar, or a large amount, peshkash. Small sum of money is nazar and a large amount is a peshkash. In diplomatic relations, gifts were regarded as a sign of honor and respect. Thomas Roe was disappointed when a ring he had presented to Asaf Khan was returned to him for the reason that it was worth merely 400 rupees. Thomas Roe was disappointed when a ring he had presented to Asaf Khan was returned to him for the reason that it was worth merely 400 rupees. Seventh, Seventh point, the imperial household. The term harem is frequently used to refer to the domestic world of the Mughals. It originated in the Persian word haram, meaning a sacred palace. Both for the Rajput clans as well as the Mughals, marriage was a way of cementing political relationships and forging alliances. It was through the link of the marriage and the relationships that developed as a result that the Mughal were able to form a vast kinship folk that linked them to important groups and helped to hold a vast empire altogether. Next point. In Mughal household, a distinction was maintained between the wives who came from royal families, that is Begums, and other wives, that is Aghas, Aghas, who were not of the noble birth. Begums with higher dower, that is Mahar, naturally received higher status than Aghas. The concubines, that is Agacha, Aghacha, or the lesser Agha, occupied lowest position. They all received monthly allowances in cash supplemented with gifts according to the status. The lineage-based family structure was not entirely static. The Agha and Agacha could rise to the position of the Begum depending on the husband's will and provided that he did not already have four wives. Next point, slave eunuchs, EUNUCHS, that is third gender. Khwajaras, Khwajasara, Khwaja Sara. Slave eunuchs, that is Khwaja Sara, moved between the external and internal life of the households as guards, servants, and also as agents for women dabbling in commerce. After Nur Jahan, Mughal queens and princesses began to control significant financial resources. Shah Jahan's daughters Jahanara and Roshanara enjoyed an annual income often equal to that of a high imperial mansabdar. Jahanara, in addition, received revenues from the port city of Surat. Jahanara, Surat. Jahanara participated in many architectural projects of Shah Jahan's new capital, Shahjahanabad, that is Delhi. Among these was the imposing double-storied Karvasarai with the courtyard and garden. The bazaar of Chandni Chowk was designed by Jahanara. Humayun Nama written by the Gulbadan Begum. Gulbadan was the daughter of the Babur, Humayun's sister, and Akbar's aunt. Gulbadan could write fluently in Turkish and Persian. When Akbar commissioned Abul Fazl to write a history of his reign, he requested his aunt to record her memoirs of early times under Babur and Humayun Abul Fazl to draw upon. What Gulbadan Begum wrote was no eulogy. Eulogy, eulogy means Prashansha Bhashan of the Mughal emperors. Rather, she described the conflicts and tensions among the princes and the kings and the important mediating role elderly women of the family played in resolving some of these conflicts. Next arrow image, the birth of the Prince Salim at the Fatehpur Sikri by Ramdas, Akbarnama. The birth of the Prince Salim at Fatehpur Sikri by Ramdas in Akbarnama. 8th point. The imperial officials. 8a. Recruitment of rank. Nobility was recruited from diverse ethnic and religious groups. This ensured that no faction was large enough to challenge the authority of the state. Next point. The officer corps of the Mughal was described as the bouquet of flowers, Gultasta, held together by the loyalty to the emperor. In Akbar's imperial service, Turani and Iranian nobles were present from the earliest phase of carving out a political dominion. Two ruling groups of the Indian origin entered the imperial service from the 1560 onwards, Rajputs and Sheikhzadas, that is Indian Muslims. First Rajput chief, Raja Bharmal Kachwaha, Raja Bharmal Kachwaha of Amber, to whose daughter Akbar got married. Hindus caste inclined towards education and accountancy were promoted. Example, Raja Toral of the Khatri caste and Akbar's finance minister. Iranians gained high offices under the Jahangir, whose politically influential queen Noor Jahan was an Iranian. Under Aurangzeb, Marathas accounted for a sizable number within the body of the officers. All holders of the government offices held mansabs, that is, ranks comprising two numerical designations, Zat and Sawar. Zat, which was an indicator of position in the imperial hierarchy, and the salary of the official, that is Mansabdar, and Sawar, which indicated the number of horsemen he had required to maintain in the service. In 17th century AD, Mansabdars of 1000 Zats or above ranked as nobles, that is Umara, plural of Amir. Umara is a plural of Amir. So the Mansabdars of 1000 Zats or above ranked as nobles, that is Umara, plural of Amir. Each military commander recruited, equipped, and trained the main striking arm of the Mughal army, the cavalry. The troops maintained superior horses branded on the flank by the imperial mark, that is Dag. The emperor personally reviewed changes in rank, titles, and official postings for all except the lowest ranked officers. Akbar, who designed the Mansab system, also established spiritual relationship with the select band of his nobility by treating them as his disciples, that is Murid. A person wishing to join the service petitioned through a noble, who presented a tajweez to the emperor. If found suitable, mansab was granted. Next arrow, tajweez. Tajweez was a petition presented by a nobleman to the emperor, recommending that an applicant be recruited as mansabdar. The Mir Bakshi, that is paymaster general, stood in open court on the right of the emperor and presented all candidates for appointment or promotion, while his office prepared orders bearing his seal and signature as well as those of the emperor. Next point, besides Mir Bakshi, two other important ministers were Diwan-e-Ala, that is finance minister, and Sadr-us-Sudur, that is minister of grants or Madad-e-Mash, and in charge of appointing local judges or qazis. Diwan-e-Ala, that is finance minister, and Sadr-us-Sudur, minister of grants or Madad-e-Mash, and Sadr-us-Sudur was also in charge of appointing local judges or qazis. The three ministers, that is Diwan-e-Ala, Sadr-us-Sudur, and Mir Bakshi, These three ministers occasionally came together as an advisory body but were independent of each other. Akbar, with these and other advisors, shaped the administrative, fiscal, and monetary institutions of the empire. Nobles stationed at the court, that is, Tainat-e-Rakab. Nobles stationed at the court were a reverse force. Nobles stationed at the court were a reserve force to be deputed to a province or military campaign. Duty duty bound to appear twice daily, morning and evening, to express submission to the emperor in the public audience hall. They shared the responsibility for guarding the emperor and his household round the clock. Next arrow. Chandrabhan Brahman. Chandrabhan Brahman described the Mughal nobility in his book Char Chaman, that is Four Gardens, written during Shah Jahan. He quoted people from many races, that is Arabs, Iranians, Turks, Tajiks, Kurds, Tatars, Russians, Abyssinians, and so on, and from many countries, that is Turkey, Egypt, Syria, Iraq, Arabia, Iran, Khorasan, and Turan. In fact, different groups and classes of people from all societies have sought refuge in the imperial court, as well as different groups from India, men with knowledge and skills as well as warriors. For examples, Bukharis and Bhakharis, Bukharis and Bhakharis, Bukharis and Bhakharis, Sayyids of genuine lineage, Sheikh-Zadas with noble ancestry, Afghan tribes such as Lodhis, Rohillas, Yusufzai, Afghan tribes such as Lodhis, Rohillas, and Yusufzai, and castes of Rajputs who were to be addressed as Rana, Raja, Rao, and Rayan, that is Rathod, Sisodia, Kachwaha, Kachwaha, Gaur, Chauhan, Panwar, Baduria, Solanki, Bundela, Shekhawat, and all the other Indian tribes such as the Ghakkar, Khokhar, Baluchi, and others, who wielded the sword and mansabs from 100 to 7,000 zat. Likewise, landowners from the steppes and mountains from the regions of the Karnataka, Bengal, Assam, Udaipur, Srinagar, Kumaon, Tibet, and Kishtwar, and so on. Whole tribes and groups of them have been privileged to kill the threshold of imperial code, that is, attend the court or find employment. Next arrow. Jesuit priest Frank Antonio Monserrat, resident at the court of the Akbar, noticed king gives nobles imperious commands. The obedience to these commands ill suits their exalted ranks and dignity. Now comes the 8B, and empire. Information and empire. The Mir Bakshi supervised the corps of court writers, that is, Wakia Navis, who recorded all applications and documents presented to the court and all imperial orders, that is, Farman. In addition, agents, that is, Vakil, of nobles and regional rulers recorded the entire proceedings of the court under the heading News from the Exalted Court, Akhbarat-e-Darbar-e-Mualla, with the date and the time of the court session, that is Pahar. The Akhbarat contains all kinds of information such as attendance at the court, grant of offices and titles, diplomatic missions, presents received, or the inquiries made by the emperor about the health of an officer. This information is valuable for writing the history of the public and private lives of the kings and nobles. Round the clock relays of the foot runners, that is, Qasid or Pathmar. Foot runners, Qasid or Pathmar. Around the clock relays of the foot runners carried papers rolled up in bamboo containers. 8C. Beyond the center, the provincial administration. Provinces, also called as subas. Provinces where the ministers had their corresponding subordinates, that is Diwan, Bakshi, and Sadr. The head of the provincial administration was the governor, that is Subadar, who reported directly to the emperor. The sarkars into which each suba was divided often overlapped with the jurisdiction of the Faujdars commandants. Faujdars means commandants, who were deployed with contingents of the heavy cavalry and musketeers in districts. Next point, the local administration was looked after at the level of the Pargana, that is sub-district. Pargana means sub-district, by three semi-hereditary officers. The Kanungo, that is the keeper of the revenue records, the Chaudhry, that is in charge of the revenue collection, and the Qazi. Persian was made the language of the administration throughout. but local languages were used for village accounts. The relationship between the local landed magnates, the zamindars, and the representatives of the Mughal emperor was sometimes marked by the conflicts over authority and a share of resources. The zamindars often succeeded in mobilizing peasant support against the state. Ninth point, beyond the frontiers. Titles by emperors, that is Shahanshah, king of kings. Jahangir, that is world Caesar. Or Shah Jahan, that is king of the world. Jahangir, world Caesar. 9a. The Safavid and Kandahar. A constant aim of the Mughal policy was to ward off his potential danger by controlling strategic outposts, notably Kabul and Kandahar of the Hindu Kush. Kandahar was a bone of contention between the Safavids and the Mughals. The fortress town had initially been in the possession of Humayun, reconquered in 1595 by Akbar. While the Safavid court retained diplomatic relations with the Mughal, it continued to stake claims to the Kandahar. In 1613, Jahangir sent a diplomatic envoy to the court of the Shah Abbas to plead the Mughal case for retaining Kandahar, but the mission failed. In winter 1622, a Persian army besieged Kandahar. The ill-prepared Mughal garrison was defeated and had to surrender the fortress and the city to the Safavids. Next arrow, image. Image of the Jahangir's dream. Miniature by Abul Hasan. Abul Hasan painted Jahangir and Safavid Shah Abbas. The figure is based upon the portraits made by the Bishandas, who accompanied the Mughal embassy to Iran in 1613. This gave a sense of authenticity to a scene which is fictional, as the two rulers had never met. That is, Jahangir and Safavid ruler Shah Abbas never met. Bishandas hai Abul Hasan. Now come the 9b. The Ottomans, pilgrimage and trade. Hijaz, Hijaz. Hijaz, that part of the Ottoman Arabia where the important pilgrim centers of Makkah and Medina were located. Mughal emperors combined religion and commerce by exporting valuable merchandise to Aden and Mukha, both Red Sea ports, charity to keepers of the shrines and religious men there. When Aurangzeb discovered cases of misappropriation of funds sent to Arabia, he favored their distribution in India, which he thought was as much a house of God as Makkah. So the Mokha or Mocha is a port in the present day Yemen, uh, uh, towards the Red Sea part. Okay, and the Eden is towards the Gulf of Eden in the Yemen. Now came the 9C. Jesus at the Mughal court. Jesuit accounts are the earliest impressions of the Mughal court ever recorded by the European writers. Akbar was curious about the Christianity and dispatched an embassy to Goa to invite Jesuit priests. The first Jesuit mission reached the Mughal court at the Fatehpur Sikri in 1580, situated west of Agra, and stayed for about 2 years. The Jesuits spoke to Akbar about the Christianity and debated its virtues with the ulama. Two more missions were sent to the Mughal court at the Lahore in 1591 and 95. Monserrato, the member of the first Jesuit mission. Monserrato was the member of the first Jesuit mission. Monserrato. Now the 10th point. Questioning formal religion. Monserrato remarked that King cared little that in allowing everyone to follow his religion he was in reality violating all. Akbar. Akbar's interfaith debates in Ibadat Khana at Fatehpur Sikri between learned Muslims, Hindus, Jains, Parsis, and Christians. Akbar's religious views matured as he queried scholars of different religions and sects and gathered knowledge about their doctrines. Increasingly, he moved away from the orthodox Islamic ways of understanding religion towards the self conceived eclectic form of divine worship focused on light and the sun. Akbar and Abul Fazl created a philosophy of the light and used it to shape the image of the king and ideology of the state. In this, a divinely inspired individual has supreme sovereignty over his people and complete control over his enemies. Next comes the image. Religious debates in the court, Padre Rudolph. Image of the religious debates in the court of the Rudolph. Padre Rudolph Acquaviva was the leader of the first Jesuit mission. Padre Rudolph Acquaviva was the leader of the first Jesuit mission, and the Monserrato was a member of the first Jesuit mission. Next arrow. Abdul Qadir Badanis. Abdul Qadir Badoni's Muntakhab ut Tawariq, a theologian and a courtier, critical of Akbar's policies. His Majesty, he quoted, His Majesty had been performing home in the haram, which is a ceremony derived from the fire worship, that is Atish Parasti. But on the new year of the 25th regnal year 1578, he prostrated publicly before the sun and the fire. In the evening, the whole court had to rise up respectfully when the lamps and the candles were lighted. Double arrow. Some major Mughal chronicles and memoirs in the end. Some major Mughal chronicles and memoirs. 1530. Manuscripts of the Babur's memoirs in the Turkish become part of the family collection of the Timurids. 1587. Gulbadan Begum begins to write the Humayunama. 1589. Navasi. Babur's memoirs translated into Persian as Babarnama. 1579 से 1602. Abul Fazl works on Akbarnama. 1605 से 22. Jahangir writes his memoirs Jahangirnama. 1639 से 47. Lahori composes the first two daftars of the Bashanama. 1650. Muhammad Wise begins to chronicle the third decade of the Shah Jahan's reign. 1668. Alamgirnama, a history of the first 10 years of the Aurangzeb's reign compiled by the Muhammad Qasim. Muhammad Kazim, Kazim.